A federal judge in San Diego says after the government tries to shift responsibility for reuniting migrant families separated at the border.
So we came down to the river bottom to be, out of sight, out of mind.
A new program aims to get people off the streets and into treatment, but reversing their course is a huge challenge for local outreach teams. And will it be like Comic-Con all year round? The Comic-Con Museum takes a small step forward today. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today, a legal win for the so-called Dreamers. A federal judge ruled that the Trump administration must reinstate the Deferred Action for Children Arrivals program, also known as DACA. Judge John Bates says the president's decision to end the Obama-era program was arbitrary and capricious. He also commented on the latest Homeland Security memo to allow the deportation of people who were brought to the U.S. without documentation as children. He said this decision was unlawful and unconstitutional. And a San Diego-based federal judge says the government is 100% responsible for the reunification of deported parents with their children. KQED's John Sepulvedo reports on the latest development in the family separation of immigrants.
Federal Judge Dana Sabra not only says the government is responsible for the more than 400 children whose parents were deported as part of the zero-tolerance policy, but that if the government does not act, there is a strong possibility they'll create permanent orphans. The government was supposed to turn in a plan on Thursday that outlines how they would reunify those families. Instead, the government essentially told the court that the ACLU should do it. The ACLU, of course, brought the suit to end family separation, and the judge has called the practice unconstitutional. The Trump administration instituted family separation as a deterrent for families who apply for asylum and also those who enter the country illegally. A Syracuse study shows that zero tolerance has overwhelmingly targeted families, and in court it was revealed that 95% of the adults deported were from Central American countries. For KPBS News, I'm John Sepulvedo.
Fires burning throughout the state have collectively scorched more than 400,000 acres so far. Cooler temperatures are expected to kick in, but so are high winds, posing new challenges for crews, which could spread flames and force new evacuations. California officials are looking to secure more federal dollars to help cover the cost of fighting the fires and rebuilding after.
Some of the other fires may or may not rise to a federal presidential declaration. And that means that the full opportunity for the federal government to replace critical local infrastructure, as well as provide a lot of assistance to the locals, may not be forthcoming in some of the smaller fires, even though a lot of land has been burned.
The Associated Press reports that California has already spent $125 million of its fire budget just 1 month into the fiscal year. And fire crews aren't the only ones traveling to Northern California to help out with the fires. Today, more than 30 employees for SDG&E loaded onto buses headed to Mendocino. Trucks are going too. The crews will be assisting Pacific Gas and Electric to restore power to thousands of people affected by the Mendocino Complex fire. Workers will help with assessing damage and resetting burnt poles, as well as rebuilding the electric grid. The rash of 18 major wildfires in California is giving residents more to deal with in the form of air quality. Just over the past week alone, more than 20% of the state's population has been exposed to unhealthy air conditions. The Environmental Protection Agency has the information posted on their website. That's airnow.gov. And you can see the areas deemed unhealthy are marked in red. The map also shows the poor conditions have drifted east to areas of Nevada and as well as Oregon. Air conditions are expected to improve today as winds do pick up and temperatures cool. And air quality at the border isn't great either. Wait times for cars into the U.S. from Mexico are often measured in hours. A new report shows that any wait longer than 90 minutes at the San Ysidro port of entry significantly impacts the surrounding air quality. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulove says there's a new program to keep tabs on pollution at the border.
70,000. That's about how many cars crossed into the U.S. at San Ysidro every day last year. It's one of the busiest border crossings in the world.
The effects of poor air quality on the community.
State Senator Ben Hueso says all those idling cars and commercial trucks foul the air.
In my district, in the Senate district, we have some of the communities with the poorest air quality in the nation.
San Ysidro Health's chief medical officer, Dr. Maria Carriero Ceniceros, says toxins from the exhaust are tied to lung and heart problems, especially in children and the elderly.
As parents, we want our kids outside. We want them playing. We want them running around, getting exercise and activity. Yet if the air quality is poor, we're actually exposing them to unhealthy air.
Inside the monitor, we can see that we have a fan that is absorbing the outdoor air.
David Flores' community development agency, Casa Familiar, already has a dozen air quality sensors installed all over San Ysidro.
This is a particulate matter counter.
Now, thanks to a $500,000 grant from the California Air Resources Board, there will be more full-size sensors, plus 100 new low-cost sensors, including some indoors at places like schools.
Connected via cellular network that sends the data at 5-minute intervals to our database.
San Ysidro is one of 28 regions statewide to receive money to monitor their air quality over the next 2 years. Results will guide the state on which areas have the biggest need for cleanup efforts. Katie Shulev, KPBS News.
A new pilot program in San Diego County aims to help hundreds of unhealthy homeless people who've recently racked up $20,000 or more in Medi-Cal costs. But KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy says easing them off the streets is a daunting process.
It's a hot July afternoon as outreach workers Angelica Garcia and Camille Cross set off on a search for a homeless couple near a riverbed in Chula Vista.
To the left is where she said they're at.
The couple is on a list of 1,050 names of people in need of intensive care management who frequently use emergency rooms.
They said behind a brick wall, so I'm assuming it's this one right here.
They're supposedly somewhere in this vast abandoned industrial space littered with graffitied cinder blocks and debris.
I see some wood over there.
The man and woman called the outreach workers last night to let them know of their new location after disappearing off the radar a few weeks ago.
Julie?
No, she's next door.
Next door? Behind the next wall?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Around the bend, they find a shack made of scraps of plywood.
How you doing, girl?
I'm okay.
In it are 46-year-old Julie Black and 52-year-old Philip Wright.
Hey,
Yo, Philip, what's up, bro?
How you? Oh my gosh.
Hey, man, and it's swollen.
For years, the couple has avoided shelters, spending their nights hidden from everyday life.
So we came down to the river bottom to be, out of sight, out of mind.
Black struggles with social anxiety. It's why her first encounter with the outreach team 3 months ago didn't go well.
I screamed at them to get away from me.
Now, after a dozen visits from Garcia and Cross, the couple is warming up to the idea of getting help. They realize their unhealthy lifestyle has reached a critical point.
They keep us up on hygiene, clothing, and appointments, and they just do everything for us.
Both struggle with drug addictions and chronic illnesses. Wright was in the ER last night with an infected hand.
I go to the doctors a lot because if I have something wrong, I go to the doctor.
Connecting with people like Wright and Black is the goal of the new Whole Person Wellness program.
Thank you, Philip.
Dozens of outreach workers have been hired to work patiently and persistently to help the most desperate people in the population transition from sleeping on the streets to finding mental health care and addiction treatment, and eventually supportive housing.
The list is just over 8,000 potential folks that are eligible.
Andrew Barajas is with People Assisting the Homeless, or PATH. He oversees some of the outreach teams. The first step is meeting people where they are and creating face-to-face relationships. Referrals often come from hospital emergency rooms, psychiatric providers, and homeless outreach teams.
If you can imagine experiencing severe mental health issues or a substance use disorder or addiction, it can be very challenging to open up to someone who's a complete stranger.
Barajas says building trust can take weeks or months.
Some of our most intense cases, we're able to meet with them 3 times per day. And there are cases that are in crisis where you have suicidality, where you have extreme polysubstance use issues, where you've got extreme mental health symptoms that maybe aren't treated yet.
During the process, the team of case managers and health workers conduct a comprehensive assessment while connecting people to appropriate medical care and stability.
we're very good at empathizing, but also empowering, so that, you know, we're teaching and looking for skill building opportunities so that someone can become self-sufficient.
48-year-old Jacqueline Van Ellen started the Whole Person Wellness program a few months ago. She recalls when her outreach workers encouraged her to leave her corner on an El Cajon street.
At first I go, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. Like, I was afraid to go. And then I told myself, I'm going through this, I'm going to do this.
She moved into her permanent supportive housing apartment last week after 2 decades of sleeping on the streets and in cars with mental and chronic illnesses.
I can't tell you how blessed I feel.
She says getting to this point has included classes to help her transition into society, medical care, and encouragement from her outreach team.
I wouldn't have done it without any of them. All of them had a place in my recovery into living in a home.
Ready? Yeah. All right.
Julie Black and Philip Wright are also hopeful about moving forward with the program. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Emerson Mnangagwa declares victory as the opposition challenges the results in Zimbabwe's election. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A new aircraft carrier will be coming to San Diego. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh said it is part of a massive shift involving 3 of the Navy's largest ships.
The Navy announced that the USS Abraham Lincoln will be coming to San Diego from Norfolk. The move is part of a change that includes 3 Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. The USS Carl Vinson is currently at the RIMPAC exercises outside of Hawaii. It will leave San Diego and go to Bremerton, Washington. The USS John C. Stennis will move from Washington to Norfolk for the nuclear-powered carrier's midlife refueling. It was actually in San Diego today. Commander Ron Flanders says some of the crews will leave their families in San Diego.
Many sailors who will make the trek up to Bremerton for this homeport shift will be right back here for shore duty coming afterwards. And so those sailors may decide to leave their families here.
Each carrier has a crew of roughly 3,000. In 2015 and 16, San Diego was part of a Navy experiment to have the crews of 3 aircraft carriers switch ships so they could keep their original home port. The so-called 3-hull swap was designed to save money and to lessen the strain on families. The complex maneuver played out over months. This time, the crews will stay with their carriers. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
A San Diego construction firm announced today that it will be building the new Comic-Con Museum in Balboa Park. KCM Group says it will oversee the design, permitting, and construction. The Comic-Con Museum is replacing the Hall of Champions Sports Museum. It's about 68,000 square feet in space, and the project is still in its fundraising phase and likely several years from completion. New job numbers are out. San Diego finalizes short-term rental rules, and Apple becomes the first trillion-dollar company. Earlier, SDSU marketing lecturer Miro Kopik joined us for the Friday Business Report. Miro, thanks for being here today. Can you give us the takeaway from the July jobs report?
Well, today's jobs report was a little bit of a disappointment over the expectation. About 150,000 jobs. Expected were about 190,000 jobs. So it was a little bit below, but the unemployment rate ticked down to about 3.9%, which is great. Some of the ramifications is that of this jobs report, it follows a really positive trend of jobs through the first half of the year. In fact, the May and June jobs report was revised upward by over 15%. 40,000 jobs of that 157,000 were manufacturing jobs. And that's great news for those in different parts of the country, but that does not start to factor the impact of the trade tariffs, which we might see in the jobs report in the fall, beginning in September and October. A lot of the wage growth that's anticipated was a little bit muted. We had about a 2.7% increase in real wages, which is still just a little bit above inflation, which is good because over the past 5 years, a lot of times it was actually below the inflation rate. So workers are making a little bit more money.
So HomeAway is the world's leading vacation rental marketplace.
Let's talk for a moment about short-term rentals, and San Diego is moving forward with some rules. Do you think that the sharing market can actually be reined in?
Certainly the City Council does. The City Council passed a fairly tough short-term rental regulation on a 6-2 vote that basically limits the short-term rentals to a homeowner's primary residence only. A couple of hurdles. The first one is the California Coastal Commission has to approve this as well. And the bias of the Coastal Commission has always been to short-term rentals because they want to offset that the higher cost of hotels. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what that happens. And the regulation, if the Coastal Commission passes it, takes effect next July. And during this time frame, the lobbies against the city, most notably the Airbnbs and the HomeAways, they're going to file legal action saying this is not legal. And so there's a lot to stay tuned on over the next 12 months.
And Apple became the first company to reach a $1 trillion market cap. For those of us who don't work on Wall Street, what does that mean?
That's a milestone for any company anywhere in the world. $1 trillion is a lot of money. And to put it into perspective, $1 trillion of market value is more than the value of companies like Procter & Gamble, ExxonMobil, and AT&T combined. It's more value than the total gross domestic product of a country like Portugal. And if you want to look at it from our own perspective, it is worth 5% of the national GDP. So it's a big milestone. But what's fascinating about Apple is that $1 trillion valuation results in a 50,000% increase in the stock from when it first went public. But all that value happened between 2007 and today. So all those other 23 years, not so much. But the iPhone, the iPad, and all these innovations Apple has had has created an insane amount of wealth for shareholders. And to add a little extra in that regard, Apple in the last couple of years, especially with the current tax bill, has been buying back shares, so that's even elevated the shares even more. So that's how they're deploying their tax savings, is buying back more shares and rewarding their shareholders.
Very interesting stuff. We're learning a lot. Thank you so much, Miro Kopik, SDSU Lecturer of Marketing.
You're welcome.
California is burning, San Diego is scorching, and our new numbers show climate is dramatically changing. A local congressman calls the FBI and DOJ corrupt. And just how long will it take for the Padres to build a winner? Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
A new app being released in California will let you track your doctors. It will send push notifications for any change in status, including if your doctor is under probation or has been disciplined by the medical board.
Making the patients actually have to go to our website every so often and look up a physician. It's going to come immediately to them through their phone, as long as they have the app running in the background of their phone.
And the medical board says the app will complement current legislation being considered at the Capitol that will require doctors to directly notify patients if they are disciplined for certain serious charges like sexual harassment or abuse. Space nerds can now rejoice. NASA is bringing human launches back to the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our commercial crew astronauts.
The class of 9 will ride the first commercial Boeing and SpaceX capsules in orbit next year. The U.S. hasn't sent astronauts to the space station from American soil since the year 2011. Currently, our astronauts ride on Russian capsules, with NASA paying tens of millions of dollars per person.
I'm just grateful to be able to help usher in this new era of American spaceflight. And I don't know about you, Chunky, but I think as a test pilot, it doesn't get any better than this.
By handing off crew runs to the space station, NASA can concentrate on other priorities like getting back to the moon and Mars. Nearly 500 junior lifeguards were on the beach today competing in teams and representing their communities around the county. They competed in paddling, swimming, and running events. And if you had to exert yourself today, the beach was probably one of the nicest places to do just that. It was another hot one here in San Diego. Daji Aswad has your full forecast.
We could see some gusting winds tonight in the mountain passes. We're talking up to 40 miles per hour, and that's due to that gradient, that onshore flow bringing that cooler air and out toward the mountains where it's a little bit warmer inland, creating that gusty clashing of winds. And we'll also be keeping an eye on those coastal clouds for the nighttime hours and in the morning. That's going to be the trend here for the next few days. But into next week, well, temperatures are going to continue to go up. Our radar and satellite not showing much out towards San Diego or Los Angeles. We're in that dry zone, high pressure over us, and it's actually not as strong as it could be, but the temperature is still a little bit above average here in San Diego tonight with a low of 71. We're usually in the upper 60s, 66 rather in Oceanside, and 82 in Borrego Springs. Clear conditions back towards Borrego Springs as well as Mount Laguna, dropping down to 64. Tonight, once again, we're cooling down into the lower 70s, partly cloudy conditions. Some coastal clouds coming in, then going to be diminishing as we head into your Saturday morning. So remain hot out towards Southwest California, where we'll notice a cooling trend is out towards Northern California, slightly cooler, high pressure not as strong, and we also have an upper level system that's bringing in that cooler air. But that's going to change as we head into next week. We'll get to that in just a second. Once again, for your Saturday, looking nice out there. 82 in San Diego, 83 in Oceanside, and 111 in Borrego Springs, 83 in Mount Laguna for your Saturday's high. Into early week, well, that high pressure that's taking its time building strength as of now will gain strength, turn things really hot here across not only the Southern California region, but into the Northwest. And we could be looking at excessive heat warnings and advisories in place. So something to keep in mind if you have any outdoor plans. Coast for your end of the weekend, 84 on Sunday, and then rising into the upper 80s Monday and Tuesday. Inland, we're going to be talking upper 90s for early week. And as we swing into the mountains, a chance for some thunderstorms for your midweek forecast. Temperatures going to remain in the triple digits out towards the desert.
A new documentary uses family history to shed light on recent events in Serbia. KPBS film critic Beth Accomando has this review of The Other Side of Everything.
The Other Side of Everything is a first-person documentary about a daughter exploring her relationship with her mother. But when the mother also happens to be a pivotal figure in Yugoslavian Serbian history, then the story becomes about something much bigger. Filmmaker Mila Turelic uses her mother, Srbijanka Turelic, as a guide through the recent political upheavals of modern Serbia. Her mother proves a riveting centerpiece for the film. She's a retired engineering professor, constant activist, and unflinching pragmatist. The Other Side of Everything serves up a compelling and provocative look at a country many Americans may not be that familiar with. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Getting to know people and places in San Diego and the Imperial County is what the KPBS Explore project is all about. In this series, we visited 5 different communities from different corners of the region to show you what it's like to live and work in those areas. Tonight, we look at the state of housing in Escondido.
The high cost of housing is a big issue. That's why almost everybody lives with roommates.
It's crazy. There's no homes under 400,000. There's no more.
Rent is expensive, and rent in Escondido has definitely gone up, and we're competing now with other cities.
When I ask people in the church, most people live in little apartments because they can't even afford a house. So, because I remember go back 20 years ago, everybody lived in a house.
There are people who are probably, for lack of a better word, I mean, they're cohabitating with other families so that they can afford it.
The apartment communities aren't really, they're not nice. They're big buildings, they're big companies, but for what they're asking for in market value, I believe it's really high.
So Escondido does have a lot of rentals.
Everybody that can work, works. Everybody pulls in to pay for everything. And because now everything's very expensive now.
And that's when homelessness begins to rise, that's when crime begins to go up.
My hopes for Escondido, they would love our prices down. That's one thing. You know, to be able to have more commercial, more jobs, because we do have, like myself, I had to drive to La Jolla to be able to work.
But I think overall, we all come together in the same place. We're all one people here in Escondido.
And you can watch the rest of this series at kpbs.org/whereicomefrom. We'd like to hear what you think about our series. You may join the conversation on our KPBS Facebook page. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And we leave you with the sights and sounds from the Latin American Festival in Old Town. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.
Yo tenía mi cascabel con una cinta dorada, con una cinta dorada. Yo tenía mi cascabel, yo tenía mi cascabel con una cinta dorada, con una cinta dorada. Yo tenía mi cascabel. Ay, cómo era Dios lo ve, y cómo era Dios lo ve. Se lo di a mi prenda amada para que juegue con la ya por la madrugada. Ay, como resumba y suena, resumba y va resumbando mi cascabel en la arena.